can observe, you can do whatever you want. Just don't interfere. Are we cool?
Okay, what is it?
I'm not gonna tell you anything else.
Do you have a warrant?
We don't need a warrant, bro.
ICE in Jersey City, a community standing on edge after an influx of agents.
I don't feel safe anymore, even though I have my citizenship.
Plus a substantial budget deficit coming to light.
It was built on irresponsible decision-making. It was built on incompetence.
How the new administration plans to make up for the financial shortfall, Mayor James Solomon going on the record. Plus, a new administration brings in a new leader to the city's Department of Transportation. Mike Flynn weighs in on the Gateway Tunnel, the plans for fast-free buses, and how a possible return to year-round outdoor dining could impact traffic and parking. Plus, Governor Hochul choosing Adrienne Adams as her running mate in her bid for re-election, New York State's first all-female ticket. Picks on Politics starts right now.
This is Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome to Picks on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Manarino in a very busy week, specifically in Jersey City. From ICE agents detaining people in the streets to a major budget gap that could drastically impact how new Mayor James Solomon makes decisions for the city. That deficit totaling $250 million, more than a quarter of the city's entire budget. Mayor Solomon placing the blame on his predecessor, alleging mismanagement of funds in several areas, including unpaid medical bills, consultation for a scrap museum, and unpaid city contracts. So the question here is, how does Jersey City get out of this giant hole? Mayor James Solomon going on the record. Mr. Mayor, welcome back to Picks on Politics. Good to see you.
Dan, great to see you. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the budget, right? Because you highlight many reasons for the city seeing this massive deficit, which, by the way, is 6 times greater than the one that New York City is facing, right? And you're blaming Stephen Fulop for this. Now, I wanted to, I guess, kind of look for the explanations as to why you are in this bind to begin with. What are the main contributing factors?
Yeah, so a couple of core things. The first is gimmicks. Instead of, taking responsible decisions, making responsible actions, the former mayor used one-time tricks. So, for example, he emptied out our entire rainy day fund, $100 million, during a period of relative economic prosperity. Second was, we believe, intentional undercounting and under-budgeting of our healthcare costs. Getting into office, looking through the books, we found $52 million in healthcare bills that simply hadn't been paid. And because of that, we were paying late fees to the tune of $1 million a year to some of our healthcare providers. You add all those things together, and it gets to, one of the largest deficits in the country, over $250 million, 28% of our budget.
Mr. Fulop was here last week, and he was placing the blame on, saying that all mayors kind of place the blame on prior administrations. I was talking to him about snow removal, but he was saying, you know what, this is not something new, that a new mayor comes on board and blames their predecessor. What do you have to say to that?
This is of a different scope and scale of what mayors across the country are dealing with. Very few cities have a budget deficit that is, again, as you said, more than a quarter of their city. And again, there are decisions that are made that were known, but when you find $52 million of unpaid bills, that is a level of deception that is deeply concerning and completely different from the usual things that happen during transitions. We also found, real vanity. Over $20 million were spent on consultants for a museum that never showed up and that we never had a plan to build. One consultant got $7.5 million. Can you imagine getting $7.5 million to, in essence, do nothing?
Mr. Fulop also, in a new statement, pointed out that passing a city budget plan isn't just the sole responsibility of a mayor, but it's that of the city council. And he says you were on that city council and were aware of these issues over the years. So do you take any responsibility being on the council and seeing the budgets as they came through?
Yeah, it's important to kind of set the record straight.
Yeah.
I was on the council for 8 years, and all 8 years I voted against his budgets. And when I voted against them, I said specifically I was voting against them because of these gimmicks, because I could see he was kicking the can down the road and putting things on the credit card. I specifically called out selling over 1,000 city properties and using the proceeds to just plug budget holes. So next year you got to sell more land, which is not a sustainable solution. But I wish I had done more. I wish I had been more vocal, found a way to get my colleagues to vote no so that we could actually build sustainable budgets.
Okay, so you always voted no, but your colleagues did, and that's why they're...
Correct, all 8 years.
Well, let's talk solutions then, Mayor, right? How do you go about closing such a massive gap? Now, I had Mayor Mamdani on, and he was talking about looking at ways to save in city agencies. You said you'll be taking $1 salary, but that's a small portion in terms of $250 million.
Correct. We're going to do everything. Obviously, taking a salary is one step. I think it's important to lead by example. We've already taken a step to change our healthcare third-party administrator. That's going to get the city $30 million less in expenditures. But for $250 million, you need a 5-year plan. We can't kick the can down the road. We can't find one-year fixes. We need a plan to get the city back to sustainable, stable financial practices, and that's going to require a partnership with the state. So we are going to work with the governor, with the legislature, with our state delegation, and come up with that sustainable plan. And our commitment is to make sure that we get our city back on track. That's why we've just been so transparent.
Yeah.
When we, again, to the former mayor, we released the numbers. If there's any number someone disagrees with, go look at the budget. It's all there. It's all for the public to inspect and explore.
But in reality, I've asked you many times if you're going to raise taxes, and you said you would look at that and maybe have to. Does this mean you have to?
So we have always said my commitment and my promise was to deliver stable property taxes to the residents of Jersey City. And that is the commitment and promise over the next 4 years. I obviously can't make any specific promises today because we have said, again, we have to be honest. Every option is on the table for what we can do to get through this. But know that the people of Jersey City have seen their property taxes go up 50% in the last 5 years. That is an extraordinary increase. It was driven by school funding changes. But folks are not sitting, flush on cash here. We need to very, very responsibly solve this, knowing that, huge increases are going to be extraordinarily painful for the people of Jersey City.
Is there an area you could say right now that you have to cut?
So, healthcare was the first one, right? It's where the biggest money expenditures are. And I think we're able to do so in a way that actually keeps our benefits equal to or better because we're able to find basically network efficiencies by switching providers, more in-network doctors, significantly reduce costs. So that was step one.
Okay.
We're going to look at our debt service. We pay $79 million every year for debt service. But again, part of why we pay so much is we pay interest because we were bonding for things. We were putting it on a credit card. We pay for things we shouldn't be doing. And we're going to look at ending all those practices. So if you're a Jersey City resident, your tax dollars are being spent responsibly.
Another big topic happening this week was what we saw play out with those ICE agents showing up, carrying out raids, right? You spoke to us to make sure that, spoke out saying that all residents should know that they are safe within Jersey City and have rights. When you look at what that city council member had to do when he approached the agent, he said, "Can I see the warrant?" And the agent shut it down, saying you don't need to see the warrant. So when you see that kind of play out, how do you convince a Jersey City resident that their rights aren't going to be violated?
What I can say is that we in the city are going to have your back, and we're going to put pressure on the federal government to reverse course. My message to Donald Trump, to these ICE, with Secretary Noem, is spend the billions of dollars that you're giving to ICE on making life more affordable. Lower healthcare costs, lower housing costs. That would make all of us better. What they did on that raid on Sunday was just arrest people on their way to work. There's not people who have committed any crimes. They're just going to work. They've been members of our community for decades, and they have made Jersey City better.
Were those ICE agents, were they committing any sort of violation by being on that property?
No, not that I'm aware of. That was the public space of the light rail.
Yeah.
And so I don't believe that violated any laws. But the practice is unconscionable. They were literally rounding people up who just happened to be there on their way to work, people who I said have been incredible members of our community.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your time this morning. A lot to talk about. We'll have you back soon, okay?
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right. And still to come, everybody, appointing him was the first move of Zohran Mamdani's tenure as mayor, quite literally on the first day. Now, Mike Flynn is tasked with making New York City streets and transit the best in the world. The Department of Transportation Commissioner Mike Flynn joining me next.
You're watching Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome back to Picks on Politics, everybody. So another busy week. Here are the big political headlines of the week in case you missed them, okay? Governor Hochul making her choice for lieutenant governor, former city council speaker Adrienne Adams. The first all-female gubernatorial ticket in New York history. Hochul picking up Mayor Mamdani's endorsement as well this week. The governor's current lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, is primarying her. And New York City's current council speaker, Julie Menin, calling for an investigation into lethal toxins in Lower Manhattan following the 9/11 attacks. Now new documents show then Mayor Rudy Giuliani's administration was not exactly forthcoming about potentially dangerous toxins. Menin wants Mayor Mamdani to provide $6 million to fund an investigation. And federal funds for the massive Gateway Tunnel project have stopped after President Trump chose to block that money last year, forcing thousands of workers off the job. The fate of the project now in the courts. And now there are reports that Mr. Trump is withholding the funding until the project will be named after him. And of course, New York City plays a major role in that project, not just helping source local funding, but also with logistics and the expanded service at Penn Station. And that leads me to my next guest, New York City's Department of Transportation Commissioner Mike Flynn, who is joining me now. So, Commissioner, great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So congratulations on the post. And let's begin with the Gateway Tunnel project, right? It stopped as of Friday with that funding, and I know New York and New Jersey are suing, but what could that really mean for the future of transportation in this region?
Well, Gateway's probably the most critical project looking regionally right now in terms of our transportation system and our economy. It's thousands of jobs. It's around, I think, $1 billion that have already been invested in advancing the project. It's massive. And I think, we need to remember the folks using the trains, using these tunnels that were damaged during Sandy, are coming from not just our region. They're really coming from the whole East Coast and even across the country. And that means the economic impact of a decision like this has a huge impact, not only on our regional economy, but nationally. I would think, thousands of jobs at risk. Anybody who is interested in creating jobs and interested in building the American economy would move this project full steam ahead.
Yeah, there's the economic impact, right? But then there's the daily just frustrations that a commuter has to kind of endure going through these old tunnels to kind of travel around.
Right.
And that's only going to get worse.
That's right, yeah. Building Gateway will allow us to not only fix this infrastructure that's in pretty rough shape, but also allow us to modernize our system and really get ready for the next century or more of regional travel.
Yeah, future and forward thinking, right? I want to talk about snow removal because it's been quite some time now since that big storm that dumped inches of snow here in New York City. Obviously, people are kind of sounding off about this. We did this last week on this very show. People were not happy with the removal efforts. Now, I know you're not Department of Sanitation, but you play a big part in getting this snow off the streets. And here we are now with these mountains of ice that still remain, and it's hard to navigate around. Have you learned some lessons from this? Can you do a better job next time?
Well, I definitely understand, like all New Yorkers, I think we're all ready for this snow to melt. And that was kind of the difference this time, right? As we've had this cold weather and the snow is stuck around. I think on the whole, the snow clearing operations went well, but it's true, there's these sort of areas of opportunity to do a little better next time, whether it's the bus stops, whether it's the crosswalks. And the mayor has tasked us as a city to see what we can learn and to see how we can be a little more proactive in the next storm to clean things up. Yeah,
the bus stops is one thing, but some of the streets just seem narrower because the snow hasn't been cleared from the edges of the street, so it's just kind of creating this gridlock situation.
Right. So sanitation plows the streets, and typically the snow melts eventually, right? And some of the snow they're able to haul away, and they have these massive snow melting machines. If you haven't seen them, they're incredible. The hot tubs, and they do their best. But in this case, it's just been so cold. So
yeah, I know it's the deep freeze. It really is just so frustrating that it can't melt quicker. One of the big promises from Mayor Mamdani, of course, has been fast and free buses. Now you can't handle the free part, but you can certainly handle the fast part.
Absolutely.
So how are you kind of helping guide this along as it moves forward on getting some of these routes to be a whole lot faster?
Yeah, this is one of our top priorities for sure. And I'll say my agency, the Department of Transportation, has been pushing the envelope with different tools for helping buses move faster for a while now. But what we need to do now is really double down on it. We can learn from our past work in terms of what works, whether it's how we design the streets with bus lanes and with the traffic signals to help move the buses faster. It's also things like automated enforcement and other strategies, targeted enforcement.
Talking about the cameras.
Cameras, right, yep. And some NYPD targeted enforcement as well, where we have real trouble spots.
Yeah.
But we need to do everything it's going to take really to have a meaningful impact on the travel time of those bus riders.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things I hear from commuters who are on these buses say that sometimes the bus has a hard time navigating because of double parked cars or a double parked truck or a delivery. That is not a new problem. So how do you go about fixing those problems?
That's right. It's not a new problem, although the law has been on the books basically forever, right? And so what we're trying to do is be very strategic and use enforcement where it's really needed to keep the bus lanes clear. I mean, every time a driver stops in a bus lane or a bus stop to go pick something up, they need to remember that they may be holding up dozens of bus riders. And we need to remember that bus riders in New York are disproportionately lower income. Older New Yorkers, folks with mobility impairments, it's really an issue of fairness, and that's kind of where this is coming from.
You see that, maybe not the free part, but the faster part. Is that something that could happen maybe this year for some of these routes?
We will have a lot to share on that. Absolutely, it's our top priority. Like I said, it's one of our top priorities. It's our first interview,
but I'm going to push you to share it now.
No, we're going to be sharing basically a strategy for how we want to move buses a lot faster. That includes, revisiting projects that we had looked at in the past. It also includes a lot of new ideas. We're trying to approach it very comprehensively, and we're very excited to share more.
Okay, good. Looking forward to that. The City Council Speaker, Julie Menon, has now kind of revisited this idea of outdoor dining, which was year-round, and then it wasn't year-round, and now she's saying she wants it year-round again. How would that kind of affect the street traffic? I know the idea was to take it down so you'd have an easier time to do street snow removal and things like that in the winter months. How would it affect? Are you in support of it?
Well, I think we learned a lot from the COVID era program, which was a lot of learning as we went. And we've had this permanent program for the past year that's seasonal, like you said. It's clear that it is a bit of a barrier to entry for some restaurants, right? We've seen good participation, right? But it's certainly not the same level, and that's what we've been hearing. You're right, too, though, that there are some real operational considerations, whether it's snow plowing, whether it's repaving the streets, and other things like that. But, we'll work with the council on those kinds of details. We'll use what we learned from the last 5 years of experience, and we'll try to tailor the best program we can.
But you're in favor of bringing it back year-round?
I think a year-round program would have higher participation.
Yeah. Okay, for the economy and economic reasons. I want to talk about you for a second. I know you're talking about what you can do for New Yorkers, but for you to come back to the DOT where you spent a lot of time, was it an easy decision when you got that phone call to say, hey, I'll come on back?
I wouldn't even call it a decision, it's the honor of a lifetime. It's humbling. The DOT team is incredible. It feels like a family. The breadth of what they do every day, whether it's paving the roads, keeping our bridges in good condition, fixing sidewalks, and of course making our streets safer, and so many other things, Staten Island Ferry, is just incredible, and the talent and the passion of the people there. It's really an honor to lead the team. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of great ideas, and with Mayor Mamdani's leadership, I know we're going to do a lot of great things.
All right, can you take a look at this pothole that's been on 42nd by Madison for me? All right,
311.
I do want to take a look right now at some of these memes that popped up on social media. I thought they were pretty funny here, with Bad Bunny saying what people call us for when they need help with their Metro card. All right, was this you? Are you a big Bad Bunny fan?
I'm a Bad Bunny fan,
When
yes.
one double parked car blocks a bus carrying 50 people, we were just talking about this.
We were just talking about that.
Okay? You're having some fun on social media with this. This was good. I like a little spice. When people complain about open streets but then love parades. It's good. All right, and one more. When speeders complain about speed cameras. Are you a snarky guy?
I've been told I have dad humor, but I'm a New Yorker. I'm a little snarky.
There you go. I like that.
Sometimes it's like you got to reach people where they are, right? So we try to use every communication channel, and humor's sometimes the best way.
Humor's good, and Bad Bunny's got the Super Bowl, so there you go.
That's right.
Commissioner, great to see you. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks so much.
Up next, everybody, New Yorker is sounding off on the cold weather that just won't quit and how they think the city is handling the harsh winter. More on that when we come back.
You're watching Picks on Politics with Dan Manarino.
So this weekend, bringing another bitter blast of cold, the coldest we're going to feel, and New Yorkers have had just about enough. The sub-freezing temps not helping getting that foot of snow out of the way. This week we hit the streets to get New Yorkers to sound off on how the city is handling all this cold weather, and just about everybody we spoke to had more blame for Mother Nature than Mayor Mamdani. Henry Vrossoff hit the streets in Lower Manhattan. Here he is.
How you been hanging with the cold? I see you're bundled up good here.
I hate it.
This is Mayor Mamdani's first rodeo dealing with this. How do you think the mayor is doing?
I think he's doing fine. It's a tough situation.
How's the city doing managing the cold?
I think they're doing the best they can. I would say the sidewalks need a little bit of work.
I wouldn't say any worse than usual. We haven't had a big storm like this in a long time, so I definitely wish the streets were a little clearer and like the bus stops and stuff like that.
One of the big headline grabbers has been homeless deaths, unfortunately. Looks like we have 17 New Yorkers as of we're speaking right now have died outside. What have you noticed relative to homelessness and anything you'd like the city to be doing better?
I think the homelessness epidemic has been like a real issue going on right now. There's a lot of homeless people in the subway. I think that's one of the things. I think providing shelter should be one of the main goals, and providing safety within those shelters.
Cars are buried, kids cannot go out, and coming to office every single day is difficult.
How do you think Mayor Mamdani is dealing with his first big weather event?
I would give them 5 out of 5.
Tell me a little bit about how you've been coping with the cold.
Well, I'm currently suing my landlord, so we had no heat for 3 days.
Did you reach out to the city, and what, if any, response did you get?
Yeah, I filed a few 311 complaints, and they were great. They responded quickly.
And now it's just what should be expected for February in New York City.
It's like that woman that went viral where she said, "It's winter." There you go. And thanks to Henry for hitting the streets, everybody. And with that, we'll be right back. Taking a look at the week ahead, everybody. Election season in full swing. New Yorkers holding their conventions. Democrats actually held theirs Friday in Syracuse. Next week, Republicans are going to gather on Long Island for their convention as Bruce Blakeman ramps up his gubernatorial campaign, wondering who he's going to pick for his lieutenant governor as well. Plus, on next week's show, I'm going to sit down with the new Department of Corrections Commissioner Stanley Richards. He is the first formerly incarcerated person to now lead the Department of Corrections, so that'll be an interesting conversation. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Happy Super Bowl weekend. Enjoy your Bad Bunny performance. We'll see you back here next time.